Hey everyone, welcome to Learn English with Zoe, where we dive into fascinating stories to make your English learning journey easy and enjoyable. Whether you're just starting out or looking to polish your English, our stories are designed to help you understand, speak, and love English more every day. Let's begin our story today. Chapter 1: The Beginning. I remember when I was a child, my mother would read me bedtime stories every night. I loved those moments. They were magical. Even now, I remember the stories. They made me laugh, they made me cry, they made me think. Those stories were in my native language, but they ignited a love for reading in me that has lasted my whole life. This love for reading is something I want to share with you. When you read in English, you're not just learning new words. You're also learning about new cultures, new ideas, new ways of thinking. You're expanding your mind. You're opening doors to new opportunities. When I decided to learn Spanish by reading a million words, it was more than just a language challenge. It was a journey into the cultures of Spanish-speaking countries. I learned about their history, their humor, their way of life. And that made learning the language so much more interesting. I started with children's books. They were easy and fun. I read fairy tales, adventure stories, and comics. I loved the pictures and the simple language. It was like being a child again, discovering the joy of reading for the first time. Then I moved on to books for teenagers. These books were a bit harder, but still fun. They were full of action, romance, and mystery. I couldn't put them down. As my Spanish improved, I started reading books for adults. These books were more challenging, but also more rewarding. I read novels, biographies, and history books. I discovered new authors and new genres. I found myself getting lost in the stories, forgetting that I was reading in a foreign language. It was amazing. One of the most surprising things was how quickly my vocabulary improved. At first, I had to look up a lot of words. But as I kept reading, I started to recognize words and phrases. They became familiar. I didn't need to use the dictionary as much. I started to understand the meaning from the context. And the more I read, the more I enjoyed it. I also noticed that my grammar improved naturally. I didn't have to memorize rules or do exercises. I just absorbed the grammar from the stories. I saw how sentences were constructed, how tenses were used, how words were connected. It was like learning by osmosis. And because I was reading for pleasure, it didn't feel like work. It was fun. One of my favorite authors in Spanish is Isabel Allende. Her novels are full of magic, romance, and adventure. They transport you to different times and places. They make you feel and think. Reading her books in Spanish was a wonderful experience. I felt like I was really connecting with the language and the culture. I also read books by Jorge Luis Borges, a master of short stories. His stories are like puzzles, full of mysteries and surprises. They make you think and wonder. Reading Borges in Spanish was a challenge, but also a delight. Reading for pleasure is not just about improving your language skills. It's also about finding joy and inspiration. It's about discovering new worlds and new perspectives. It's about connecting with authors and characters. It's about experiencing emotions and ideas. It's about having fun. So, if you want to improve your English, start reading for pleasure. Find books that you enjoy. Don't worry if they are too easy or too childish. The important thing is to have fun. As you enjoy the stories, you will naturally improve your vocabulary, grammar, and comprehension. You will become more confident and fluent. You will fall in love with the English language. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Start with easy books, then gradually move on to more challenging ones. Enjoy the process. Celebrate your progress. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Learn from them. Keep reading. Keep learning. Keep growing. Chapter 2 Reading Tips. These tips are based on my own experience and on research done by language experts. I hope they will help you as much as they helped me. First, choose books that interest you. This might seem obvious, but it's very important. If you're not interested in the subject, you won't enjoy reading, and you won't learn as much. Think about what you like to read in your native language. Do you enjoy mysteries, romances, science fiction, or biographies? Look for similar books in English. If you're passionate about a topic, you'll be motivated to keep reading, even when it's challenging. Second, don't be afraid to read books that are below your level. Sometimes we think we need to read difficult books to improve, but that's not true. Reading easy books is very beneficial. You can read them faster, understand more, and enjoy them more. This will boost your confidence and encourage you to read more. As you read more, your level will naturally improve. So, don't feel guilty about reading easy books. Enjoy them. Third, try to read a little bit every day. Consistency is key when learning a language. Even if you only read for 10 or 15 minutes a day, it will make a big difference over time. You can read on your way to work, during lunch breaks, or before bed. Make reading a part of your daily routine. The more you read, the better you'll get. Fourth, use a dictionary wisely. When you come across a word you don't know, try to guess its meaning from the context first. If you still don't understand it, then look it up. But don't stop reading to look up every unknown word. This can interrupt your flow and make reading less enjoyable. Instead, keep a notebook where you write down new words and their meanings. Review these words later. This way, you can keep reading without too many interruptions, and you'll still learn new vocabulary. Fifth, discuss what you read with others. Join a book club, participate in online forums, or simply talk to your friends about the books you're reading. Discussing books helps reinforce what you've learned, gives you new insights, and makes reading more fun. It's also a great way to practice speaking and listening in English. Lastly, be patient and kind to yourself. Learning a new language takes time and effort. There will be days when it feels hard, and you might not see immediate progress. But don't get discouraged. Remember that every page you read, every word you learn, brings you one step closer to your goal. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Keep going, and you'll get there. Chapter 3 Power of Reading. Today, I want to share a story that illustrates the power of reading for pleasure. This story is about a student of mine, Maria. Maria struggled with English for many years. She attended classes, did her homework, and tried to improve, but she always felt stuck. She could understand the lessons, but when it came to speaking or writing, she would freeze. She felt frustrated and discouraged. One day, I suggested that Maria try reading for pleasure. I told her to forget about grammar rules and exercises for a while and just find a book that she enjoyed. Maria was skeptical at first. She thought it sounded too simple, but she decided to give it a try. Maria chose a book that she had read in her native language and loved. It was a romance novel, full of drama and emotion. At first, it was hard. She had to look up many words, and it took her a long time to get through each chapter. But she persisted. She kept reading, and gradually, it became easier. She started to recognize words and phrases. She began to understand the story without using the dictionary so much. She got lost in the plot and the characters. She started to enjoy reading in English. After a few months, Maria finished the book. She felt a sense of accomplishment. But more importantly, she noticed a change in her English. Her vocabulary had expanded. Her grammar had improved. She felt more confident when speaking and writing. She started reading more books, each one a little more challenging than the last. She discovered new authors, new genres, new worlds. Reading for pleasure had transformed her English learning experience. Maria's story is not unique. Many students have experienced the same transformation through reading for pleasure. It's a powerful, enjoyable, and effective way to learn a language. So, if you're struggling with English, or if you just want to improve, give it a try. Find a book that you love and start reading. You might be surprised at how much you learn and how much you enjoy it. Chapter 4 Benefits of Reading. Why do I need to read in English? My students often ask me this. They think, I go to classes, I do my homework, I watch films in English. Why should I read books? Actually, reading is the best way to improve your English. I'll tell you why. First, reading is very important. Not long ago, 1 in 4 people went to university. Now, more people go to university. All jobs require more reading and writing than years ago. This is true for everyone, whether you're an office worker or a mechanic. Second, reading will improve your speaking, writing, vocabulary, and grammar better than any other way. It won't improve your listening directly, but it will improve your vocabulary. With a better English vocabulary, you can listen more easily and improve your listening that way. In school, you probably read lots of English. You probably read boring textbooks and stories with exercises at the end. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about reading for pleasure. That means reading a book you enjoy because you enjoy it. You're not reading because your teacher said, read this book. You're not reading because you think, I should read this book. You're reading because you want to. In an experiment in schools in America, they gave some boys free books. They were fun books like James Bond. They said, you can do what you want. You don't have to read the books. But the boys did read the books. They read a lot of books. Some boys read a book every 2 days. After years, they gave the students a test. The students who got the books got better at reading and writing, and they liked school more. The students who did not get the books did not get better at reading and writing. Actually, some of them got worse. This isn't just true for native speakers. They also did an experiment on students learning English in the Fiji Islands. They tested 3 ways to teach. The first way was normal English teaching. They did grammar classes, exercises, and so on. The second way was reading in silence. The students read books in class. The third way was reading together. The teacher read books to the students. After 1 year, the 2 ways with reading were the best. They were much better than the students who did normal English classes. They did the experiment again in Singapore. There, the students who read in silence did very well. They did the best in grammar tests. Other students did grammar classes but did worse in grammar tests. In normal classes, we try to remember grammar and vocabulary. When we read, we learn them naturally. But I understand if you still don't believe me. When I learned about all this, I found it hard to believe too. But I like to try new things, and I love learning languages. So, in 2017, I decided to do an experiment. I had wanted to learn Spanish for a long time, but I didn't learn much in normal classes. I said, I will read 1 million words in Spanish. Afterward, I will see what my level is. A million words is about 40 novels, so it was a lot of work. I started with very easy reading, like this book. Then I started reading translations of books that I knew in English. For example, I have read Harry Potter and Game of Thrones in English, so I read them in Spanish too. Finally, I read new books in Spanish. I read Latin American authors. That means writers such as Isabel Allende, Jorge Luis Borges, and Manuel Puig. I love them. I also listened to podcasts, but I always read the transcripts and added the words to my goal. After I finished reading a million words, I wrote and talked to native speakers. I was at an intermediate level. I could understand almost everything I read. I could understand people when they spoke clearly, and I could have conversations. I had spent most of my time reading, not speaking. In 1 year, I learned more than most students learn in 2 years. I didn't try to remember grammar and vocabulary. I learned them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, I don't believe this, or maybe you're thinking, wow, I'm going to read for hours every day. But I have to say something very important. You must read books that are easy and fun. If a book is too difficult or too boring, put it down and find another one. Stephen Krashen, an expert in language teaching, says, only read things in English that are fun and interesting. Read things that are really easy that you wouldn't read in your native language because they are too easy. So, you can read comics, magazines, detective stories, romance stories, and so on. Don't feel bad about reading translations. If you read very easy books, when you see a word you don't know, you will understand the meaning easily. You won't have to use a dictionary. So, what is easy? Experiments show that you should understand at least 98% of the words in the text. 98%. That's so high, I know, but let me show you an example. Here's a text where 50% of the words are not real words, so you should understand 50% of the words. Jerry Fleer got out of bed and opened the curtains. He bammed to himself as he made breakfast. He made coffee and put butter on his puffer. Someone called his phone, and he picked it up. He was very surprised by who was tingling, so his inky fell on the floor. Is that easy to understand? Could you read a whole book of that? Here is the same text, but only 2% of the words are not real, so you should understand 98% of the words. Jerry jumped out of bed and opened the curtains. He sang to himself as he made breakfast. He made coffee and put butter on his toast. Someone called his phone, and he picked it up. He was very surprised by who was calling, so his inky fell on the floor. How was that? You probably didn't understand everything, but it was more fun to read than the first text. That's why reading for pleasure is so great. Maybe you don't understand everything, but you understand enough to follow the story, and you don't have to pick up a dictionary. So, if you find that this book is too hard, read something easier. If you find it boring, read something more fun. I know that not everyone likes my writing, and that's okay. Find a book that is good for you. When we have fun, we learn much more. Because I want this book to be fun, it has no exercises in it. I thought about adding them after each story, but I don't think it's a good way to spend your time. Instead, you should read more. Read for pleasure. If you finish this book, you can try the level above because you already read the story. You will know them well, and it will be easier to understand. But maybe, when you finish this book, you will love stories. I hope so. Thank you for joining us on this storytelling adventure. Remember, every story not only brings us joy but also brings us one step closer to mastering English. Keep practicing, keep learning, and stay curious. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more stories that teach and touch our hearts. Until next time, keep the pages turning and your vocabulary growing. Goodbye and happy learning.